Hello everyone, welcome to our latest edition of the Cleveland Sports Show. I am your host, Darius Sethna. Thank you so much for joining me this week. We have another complete week of sports on the slate for you to talk about. We're going to get started with some more soccer news, of course. Then Logan Purcell will be joining me to talk more of the NBA playoffs. We're going to break down the second round a lot more. We will also give you more updates with the Cleveland Indians. And guess what? Trade updates with Julio Jones as well. It happened this week. Logan and I are going to break all of it down for you right here, right now on the Cleveland Sports Show. Let's get it started, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Darius Sethna of NordoniaHills.News, and the Cleveland Sports Show starts right now. Hello everyone, welcome to our latest edition of the Cleveland Sports Show. I am your host, Darius Sethna, right here on NordoniaHills.News, YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you're listening. Welcome back to another edition of the podcast. And you know how we get it started, fans. We have to get it started with our sports fact of the day. Now, today is June 10th, 2021. And on this day, back in 1944, relief pitcher Joe Nuxhall, at 15 years of age, 316 days old, debuts for the Cincinnati Reds. Now, this was the youngest player in the youngest player debut in MLB history. Still, the youngest player ever in the history of baseball at just 15 years old. But the story even gets better. And Joe Nuxhall, not only the youngest player to ever play in an MLB baseball game, he was also a two-time All-Star in 1955 and 1956 for the Cincinnati Reds. Now, his playing career, it began in 1944, obviously, with the Cincinnati Reds. He spent time with Cincinnati also from 1952 to 1960. Then, in 1961, he was a member of the Kansas City Athletics. And then in 1962, he went all the way out west, joining the Los Angeles Angels. After that one season he had with the Angels, Nuxhall returned to Cincinnati for one last stint with the Reds from 1962 to 1966. Now, Nuxhall was inducted into the Reds Hall of Fame in 1968, which was about 1 year after his playing career had ended. I mean, this is just a phenomenal stat. 15 years old and you're playing in a professional baseball game. Do you know what I was doing at 15 years old? I was getting this Cleveland Sports Show podcast started with Brady Hamilton. That's what I was doing when I was 15 years old. So that's your sports fact of the day. June 10th, 1944, Joe Nuxhall becomes the youngest player ever to play in an MLB game at just 15 years old, 316 days. That is quite an amazing accomplishment. Now let's move on with soccer news for you fans. The UEFA Euro 2021 tournament will be kicking off this week. Now, for those of you who are not as affiliated with soccer as I am, the UEFA Euro tournament is a tournament that happens every 4 years. It was supposed to occur last year, but due to all the COVID issues we were having last year, it seems like it was forever ago. The tournament unfortunately was canceled. However, it is back this summer. We have a lot in store for you for this tournament. Now, this UEFA Euro tournament is basically like a FIFA World Cup, but just all European countries. It's almost a mini European World Cup, if you will. The standings work the same. 3 points for a win, 1 for the winning team, 1 point for a tie for each team, and then 0 points for the losing team. Now, it all kicks off Friday, June 11th, with Italy taking on Turkey. They'll meet in the tournament's opening match in the Stadio Olimpico in Rome, the nation's capital. The final match of UEFA Euro 2020 will be at Wembley Stadium in England on Sunday, July 11th. Now, this is the first time in the history of the UEFA Euro competition that the tournament will be hosted across the continent of Europe. Usually the way it works is that you will have one primary host country, and that host country will host all of the games within the tournament. Last tournament in 2016 was hosted in France, so all the games were played in France. But now with some coronavirus concerns, obviously, you don't want to have all the teams in one country, all in a smaller area. So it makes more sense to just spread all the teams out, and we get to see a lot of Europe's most iconic soccer stadiums throughout the continent. Let's get you updated on the schedule itself for the UEFA Euro 2021 Championship Tournament. As I mentioned, it all starts tomorrow, Friday, June 11th at 3 o'clock p.m. Turkey will be taking on Italy in Rome. That'll be the only match for tomorrow. Saturday, we have a lot of games that begin this weekend. Starting on Saturday, Wales will be going up against Switzerland at 9 a.m. Denmark will be taking on Finland at noon. And then Belgium will be going up against Russia at 3 p.m. on Saturday. Sunday, we have 3 more games for you. England taking on Croatia. That should definitely be a very fun matchup. 2 very skilled teams, 2 powerhouse teams of Europe. You're not going to want to miss that one. Austria will be taking on North Macedonia. No, Nordonia fans, this is not, Macedonia is an actual country in Europe. So yes, there is another place that is called Macedonia. So Austria taking on North Macedonia at noon on Sunday. Netherlands going up against Ukraine on Sunday as well at 3 p.m. On Monday, we've got Scotland going up against the Czech Republic. Spain will be going up against Sweden on Monday as well. And here's a big one. France taking on Germany Tuesday at 3 p.m. That's definitely a game I'm going to have marked on my calendar. Now, when you talk about powerhouses of Europe, it doesn't get any higher than France and Germany. That game, as I mentioned, Tuesday at 3 p.m. And that is the UEFA Euro 2021 tournament. I will keep you updated with what's going on in the tournament for this next month, as the final will be on July 11th. So we've got a month of European soccer on our hands. I'm very excited to cover this tournament for you guys here on NordoniaHills.News. Now let's keep it soccer related. We're going to come back to the MLS. Now, in between our last episode and this episode, no games for either the Columbus Crew or FC Cincinnati. But for the Columbus Crew, in terms of their standings, Columbus, they are in 6th place in the MLS's Eastern Conference. In 7 matches played so far, the Crew with 3 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses for a combined total of 11 points. As I mentioned, they find themselves in 6th place in the Eastern Conference. However, for FC Cincinnati fans, the future seems a little more bleak for them in the standings right now in the MLS. FC Cincinnati, the lowest ranked team in the Eastern Conference of the MLS. In 6 matches played, FC Cincinnati with only 1 win, 1 draw, but 4 losses, a combined total of only 4 points. The upcoming schedule for FC Cincinnati, they'll be taking on Colorado next Saturday, June 19th at 7:30 p.m. Then on Wednesday, June 23rd, they will be in Chicago, taking on the Chicago Fire. And then they will have an away game against Toronto FC on June 26th. Now, for the Columbus Crew and their schedule, on June 19th, they will be taking on Chicago at home in Columbus. They will then head out to Philadelphia for a matchup with the Union before heading out to Austin for a matchup with them. And then they'll return home on July 3rd for a matchup with the New England Revolution, a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Finals in the MLS. And now joining me on the podcast this week, once again, Logan Purcell. Welcome to the show, Logan. We have a lot to break down, starting with the NBA. But first off, Logan, how have you been doing this week?
I've been doing good. I'm excited to keep these NBA playoffs rolling, and we've had a lot of great games so far, so I'm really excited to get going.
Yeah, we certainly have had a lot of terrific games. Logan, let's start with, we were talking about the first round last week. Now we're getting into the second round of the NBA playoffs, and we've had some results that have certainly raised our eyebrows. First, let's start with the Eastern Conference playoff bracket, that side of things, and go to this Hawks 76ers series, Logan. When we look at the Atlanta Hawks taking on the Philadelphia 76ers, Game 1, first half, now Philly holds home court, so the first two games of this series were at the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia, and you would think that the Hawks had home court in this series, the way they played down there in Philly. They were absolutely terrific. They outscored the 76ers 42-27 in the first quarter, and that first half really was just all Atlanta, Logan. They looked terrific. But in the fourth quarter, the 76ers made a miraculous comeback, being down by double digits late in the fourth quarter. They come back and cut the deficit to 2. They played some terrific defense. They pressured the Atlanta Hawks in the backcourt. They got some miraculous steals. And at the end of the day, the Sixers only lost this game by 4 points. Atlanta, because they were up by so much, they really had to just make free throws. They did make a couple of big-time shots, and they won. They took Game 1, 128-124. Bogdan Bogdanović really was the hero. Aside from Trae Young's 35, Bogdanović, the second leading scorer for Atlanta, with 21 points in 36 minutes, and they took a critical 1-0 lead in the series. But Game 2, from the start, was pretty much all 76ers, Logan. They had a dominant start in front of their home fans in Game 2, desperate to tie this series. However, Atlanta, eventually, they just kept crawling their way back. There was one point, Logan, where Atlanta's bench in Game 2 outscored Philadelphia's bench 32-0. I mean, that is pretty incredible if you think about it in terms of bench score and the substitutes. But in the third quarter, Atlanta actually took an 80-79 lead. But then when his name was called upon, Shake Milton really made a difference for the Sixers. In 14 minutes, Milton with 14 points and three rebounds. Maybe that's not like the best stat line we've ever seen, obviously, but if you watched that game, Logan, that Shake Milton certainly gave the Sixers a jolt they needed to run away with this game in that fourth quarter. They outscored Atlanta 27-18 in the fourth quarter and won Game 2 in Philadelphia 118-102. And this series is tied at 1 game apiece heading back to Atlanta. So, Logan, I'm going to be completely honest with you here. I'm very nervous about the Philadelphia 76ers moving forward in this series. I mean, they got off to that great start in Game 2, but they allowed Atlanta to crawl back in this game. That bench scoring was not something that I was impressed with in looking at from a Philadelphia perspective, because I thought that this 76ers bench really had improved. They drafted that kid Tyrese Maxey out of Kentucky. You had Shake Milton, who I thought was a great scorer. You have George Hill now. Dwight Howard for Ken Korkmaz. So I thought this was a quality bench. But Atlanta's bench is just flat out better, Logan. They have better shooters. They're more complete offensively from what I see. And I thought the Sixers improved in terms of their shooting, especially when they got Seth Curry, but Atlanta has even more shooting than what Philadelphia already improved on. So, Logan, I'll ask you this. Are you nervous about the 76ers going forward? Because I had the 76ers in 6 games, you had the 76ers in 5. From what you've seen in these last 2 games, are you going to change your mind and possibly pick the Hawks now that they have home court advantage in this series?
Well, I mean, I will change my perspective from the amount of games, but I will not say the Hawks are going to beat this Sixers team. Like you mentioned earlier, the Hawks really did have a great Game 1. They came out and they punched the Sixers right in the mouth. They said, we're in the playoffs too. We're still here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, definitely, like I said, a punch in the mouth for the 76ers. But at the end of the day, this Hawks team, this bench, relatively similar.
Yeah.
But secondary-wise, I would never compare Bogdanovich to a Tobias Harris.
Yeah, right.
And I think it's quite impressive and worth talking about of how well Steph Curry has played this postseason.
Absolutely,
He has been crucial for this Sixers team.
21 points in Game 2, yeah.
And what I don't understand is Ben Simmons. I mean, 34 minutes and 4 points, and they win.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's just something wrong there.
And only 7 assists too, Logan, so it's not like Ben Simmons was dishing the ball out a lot more than he was scoring it. It just seems like in 4 points, 7 assists, 3 rebounds in 35 minutes, that's a pretty awful stat line if you ask me.
The problem that I have with the Sixers team, like I said, I still have them beating this Hawks team, and I'm going to go 6 games, similar with you. I'm going to agree with you there. The reason that I say this, I do not believe the 76ers will have any chance to beat the Nets now. My opinion before this series was the Sixers were in that race. If there was any team that was going to beat the Nets, it was going to be the Sixers. That was my opinion. I don't think anybody's going to beat the Sixers, because the issue is Embiid has to score 40 or more for them to barely beat the Hawks. And I'm not saying the Hawks are nothing, because the Hawks are no joke. They ain't no joke. They're a good team.
Yeah, but they're not the Nets.
But they're not. Nobody's the Nets.
Yeah.
So that's the problem that I have, is Embiid is dropping 40, shooting, 67% from the field.
Right.
And they're barely winning games. So I don't think anybody is coming out of the East at this point but the Nets. And I'm sure we're going to get into that Nets-Bucks series, but that's just atrocious. I'm going to rip the Bucks on that one. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But as for this series, honestly, I still think the Sixers are taking them out in 6.
Okay.
If Trae Young got 50, maybe they go 7.
Yeah.
But I don't find that happening. I still think Embiid's too clutch in late-game performances.
Yeah, and we'll definitely see, because the 76ers, Logan, are definitely the much bigger team, the more physical team, and if they can make Trae Young work on the defensive end, that's definitely going to cause problems for the Hawks defensively. Now that DeAndre Hunter is out for the Hawks, it was confirmed this week, he will miss the rest of the postseason due to injuries, and Game 3 of this series will continue. The series will continue in Game 3 in Atlanta at State Farm Arena tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. We'll see who takes that critical 2-1 lead in this series between the 76ers and the Hawks. This is definitely going to continue to be a fascinating series, and we'll see what happens in Atlanta. And Logan, you were just mentioning this. We're going to get into this next series now. Brooklyn Nets, Milwaukee Bucks, the other side of the Eastern Conference bracket. And, Logan, you were saying that the Philadelphia 76ers were the team best built to knock off the Brooklyn Nets. I personally thought it was the Milwaukee Bucks, just with this big 3 in Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton, and Drew Holiday. But after these first 2 games in Brooklyn, Logan, because the Nets have home court in this series, I would be shocked to even understand how, if you don't follow basketball and you watched those 2 games and you heard that Milwaukee had a big 3, you would probably be thinking, who is that big 3? Because this big 3 for the Bucks has been completely non-existent. Let's start with Game 1. Now, the Bucks only lost this one by 8 points. The final score was 115-107. But there was a point where the Nets were pretty much dominating this game. It really was in the third quarter. Brooklyn outscored Milwaukee 35-23 alone in the third quarter. And this was with James Harden, Logan, playing less than a minute and only got 1 rebound. And then he hurt his hamstring. He's been dealing with some hamstring problems throughout the season. 0.0 assists, and so barely played at all. So that's one piece of the big 3 that's gone in Brooklyn. Now, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant were still obviously there, and they put on spectacular performances. But let's be honest here, Logan. I looked at this box score. Kyrie Irving, 25 points. Kevin Durant, 29 points. Neither of these guys went completely off without James Harden, and the Bucks still find a way to lose 115-107. But after I saw the score of that game, Logan, I'll be honest with you, I thought, okay, no worries, no time to panic. They only lost by 8. Brooklyn has home court anyway. They held serve in Game 1. I honestly expected the Nets to win Game 1 just because the game was in Brooklyn. Game 2, Logan, was much more surprising for me. And you look at the score, that just opens up what's even more dramatic in this game. So the Brooklyn Nets win Game 2 at the Barclays Center, 125-86. There was a point, Logan, where the Bucks were down by as many as 49, if I'm not mistaken. Giannis Antetokounmpo, only 18 points. Drew Holiday, 13 points in 34 minutes. Chris Middleton was pretty pedestrian for most of the game, only 17 points in 34 minutes. That's not good enough for this Bucks big three. But here's what really stood out to me, Logan. This was the stat that probably stood out to me most for Game 2. In Game 2, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving combined for 54 points, Logan. 54 points. The Nets scored a total of 125 points in Game 2. So if 54 points out of the 125 came from Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, the rest of the points came from guys like Joe Harris, Mike James, Landry Shamet, Nicholas Claxton, Blake Griffin. I mean, if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, I'm sorry, you cannot let those guys beat you. You have to let Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving beat you. And to me, this was just a game where the Bucks had absolutely no defensive plans. They came out right from the start in the game, Logan, using a zone defense on Kevin Durant. That's not going to work. If you're Giannis Antetokounmpo, you have to take this matchup with Kevin Durant personally and find and he's the defending defensive player of the year, right, from last year. So, I mean, if there's anyone on the Bucks who can guard Durant, it's got to be Giannis. Been extremely disappointed in the Bucks in this series. I think they were the only team who had a chance of stopping Brooklyn, and the way they've been dominated, there's really no hope for anyone in the East this year, because I think Brooklyn's just going to run away with the East, like you said. So I'll hand it over to you, Logan, because I know you have a lot to say about this Bucks-Nets series. Are you more impressed with Brooklyn? I'll get you started with this. More impressed with Brooklyn or more disappointed in Milwaukee?
I'm more disappointed in Milwaukee because Brooklyn, we know they can go to work.
Yes.
We do. Now, if this was Game 5 of the NBA or Game 6, I believe, of the 2016 NBA Finals, when Kyrie and Braun combined for 82,
yeah,
we're having a different conversation.
Right.
But they didn't. Not to mention, I'd like to make this one note. Even though they didn't get a lot of minutes, this Nets team had 13 players clock in more than 5 minutes.
Yeah. This is a deep team.
13 players. That is absurd to me. All right? Now, I'd also like to add, is it possible for me to take back all the stuff I said about Giannis finally performing in the playoffs? Because, good Lord, did he choke so bad in this one.
Yeah, this is a poor performance.
18 points. 18. This is your two-time MVP, right?
And defending a defensive player of the year last year.
18 points. You're 7 foot and you can jump over a car.
Yeah.
18 points. I mean, at this point, the only other thing you can honestly point to was they can't shoot. Period. They cannot shoot.
And this was the best.
They took 27 threes and hit 8 of them.
And this was
they hit 8 threes.
This is the best in the regular season. I saw the Bucks. This is the best I've seen them be able to shoot the ball. And they've been a great 3-point shooting team these last couple of years. But Logan, I saw some of these guys they added, like Bryn Forbes, Drew Holiday can shoot the ball. You've got a great 3-and-D player in PJ Tucker, who was pretty anemic in Game 2. To only 2 points in 22 minutes, and the shooters that normally hit shots for Milwaukee weren't hitting their shots. I mean, and like you were saying, 8 for 27 or along those lines. That's just not going to cut it, Logan.
Exactly, and also free throws. They shot 9 free throws. There was a total of 16 free throws, both teams combined.
Yeah,
that's nothing. And in Game 2 in the Sixers series, in Game 2, shot 15 alone.
Right.
There has to be some sort of physicality.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I feel like the Bucks, at that point, they should have just sent somebody in and been like,
Yeah.
And then I gotta ask you something. I have to know.
Yeah.
On what world is Brooke Lopez supposed to be taking more than 5 shots a game?
Yeah, 26 minutes,
Why?
10 points. Yeah, I mean he's a good shooter, but come on, when you've got Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton, like that's just inexcusable.
He's taking just as many shots as Drew Holiday is.
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. But that's honestly, there's not even that much to say. There's nothing to break down. It was a straight up blowout. There wasn't a chance. It was over at halftime. It was over at the end of the first quarter.
And I look at this, Logan, to go back on that Brooke Lopez point. I mean, when you think about it, the Nets really don't have a true center. I mean, they don't have a bona fide center that you can count on. I mean, DeAndre Jordan, yes, is there, but he's barely playing at all. Nicholas Claxton is young. He doesn't have a lot of experience. He brings high energy, but that's pretty much it. So when I look at the Nets in like the center position, I mean, when they let go of Jared Allen, that was basically it for them in terms of the center position. So guys like Brooke Lopez should honestly be getting their butt in the paint and dominating there down low. Is that your thought on that? Should Brooke Lopez stop attempting those shots and work in the paint more when you see that the Nets really don't have a true center?
Well, not even that, but the thing is, you do have to give credit to Kevin Durant, because he has quite actually a lot in this series played that center position for this team.
Yeah, he's had to.
And given everything, I mean, from an appearance standpoint, Kevin Durant isn't exactly a scary-looking guy. I mean, you could argue that, there are 15-year-olds that have stronger or bigger biceps than Kevin Durant, but this dude's physical.
Yeah.
He's strong.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody, and this is just my opinion, Anthony Davis is a big guy, right? But he's scared of contact. All you got to do is rough him up a bit, and he won't play well.
Right.
Kevin Durant's not like that. This guy is just lethal anytime, physicality or not. So, I at this point, unfortunately, with Brooke Lopez, my just opinion is he's not that good. He's just not that good.
Yeah.
So when you play a team like the Nets, you have to rely on your stars. Brooke Lopez is awful. I mean, like, when it comes to comparably to the other guys on that team, just my only point was he shouldn't be taking more than 5 shots a game. He really shouldn't. Because you're taking shots away from guys like Giannis, from guys like Drew Holiday, from guys like Chris Middleton. And frankly, I would take a contested 3 by Chris Middleton before I'll take a wide-open 3 by Brooke Lopez any day of the week.
Yeah, because Middleton can hit tough shots. Like, he's proven that he can hit tough shots. I'm going to ask you this, Logan, about the Bucks as well. Out of their 3 stars in Giannis, Drew Holiday, and Chris Middleton, which one have you been most disappointed with thus far in this series?
Well, for me, honestly, it's been Drew Holiday. I mean, don't get me wrong. Chris Middleton's, he was really, really rough a couple nights ago against Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Shooting 7 for 20. But the problem is that he played really, really well in the first round.
Yeah.
Couldn't argue it. Same with Giannis. He played really, really well in the first round despite his really lackluster performance in Game 2.
Right.
But Drew Holiday, I expected this guy to be, back in New Orleans, I mean, this was a 25-a-night kind of guy. He was that dude over there.
Right.
He was really, really good, and he's just not like that anymore. But it's interesting, right? Because Drew Holiday isn't one of those guys, we talk about Kyrie Irving, right? No, I think Kyrie is an amazing talent. You can't even debate his offensive ability, but he takes 30 shots a game.
Yeah.
He's a volume shooter. He needs to take a lot of shots to score.
Yeah.
Similarly to Russell Westbrook, right? Kevin Durant can score 40 on 15 shots.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right? A guy like Giannis, he can't really score on low amounts of shots because he takes 2s. Drew Holiday scored 13 points, and it wasn't like he took 20 shots. He took 10 shots.
Yeah.
He just needs to shoot the ball. And the biggest, productivity that I was hoping to see from Drew Holiday that I just haven't seen is his defensive ability.
Right.
I expected him to be all over Kyrie Irving. You watch the highlights, Kyrie Irving's wide open left and right.
Yeah.
So, from a productivity standpoint, it just seems kind of useless.
Yeah. I mean, and
he's probably been the most disappointing out of those 3.
Yeah, I mean, and I thought he was really going to be that difference maker because before it was really just Giannis and Chris Middleton who were the primary offensive players of the Bucks. I thought with this elite acquisition that they got in Drew Holiday, that was really one of the big reasons I put Milwaukee as the team who would give the Nets the most problems in the Eastern Conference. But, right now, Logan, it's not looking good for the Bucks. Game 3, basically the series on the line for and the season on the line for Milwaukee. Game 3 is tonight at 7:30 p.m. from Pfizer Forum in Milwaukee. The scenes of this series have shifted to Wisconsin and the Pfizer Forum, so we'll see if Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Bucks can take care of business on their home court. Now, the Nets will be without James Harden and Jeff Green. Logan, let's look on the Nets side of things. Without Harden and Jeff Green on the road in a hostile environment in Milwaukee, do you think that Brooklyn will still be able to handle their business against the Bucks, and especially with the fact that I would assume the Bucks will be playing much more desperate basketball than they have been in these last couple of games?
Yeah. I think the Nets will still handle their business. I don't know, and I know this sounds kind of contradicting, I don't know if I'm predicting a win tonight, but I think they definitely will take one of the two games. I think the series is going to go 5 games at the most.
Really?
The way that the Nets are playing, I don't think it goes 6. I really, really don't. Even without James Harden. Let's think about this. Without James Harden, regardless of where you play, without James Harden, this Nets team beat them by 39.
Yeah.
Minus James Harden. That, to me, is all I need to know. They will take one of these next 2 games, and if they lose one, they'll go back to Barclays Center and take them out in Game 5. But I don't know, Jeff Green-wise, I give Blake Griffin a lot of credit.
Yes,
I mean,
for
in Game 1 especially, he played really well, finishing with 18 points on over 50% from the field.
Yeah.
He's been really, really helpful in this series. And then obviously Kevin Durant's efficiency is just unbelievable. I mean, I didn't even know this until just a few minutes ago. Kevin Durant, throughout the postseason, through 7 games, is shooting exactly 50% from three-point land.
That's incredible. Yeah.
It's more than that's like record.
Yeah.
That has to be some sort of record or something. That is unbelievable. He has otherworldly abilities and efficiency, but I don't see this series going more than 5 games. I really don't. I think the Nets are going to handle their business, and they'll be on to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, and that really is a shame, Logan, because I had the Nets taking this series in 7 games. You had the Nets in 6, if I remember correctly. And we'll be shocked if this series goes more than 5 games, to be quite honest with you. So I'll have to agree. It's probably going to be Nets in 5, to be quite honest with you. We'll see what happens in this series, though. What happens to the Bucks. We'll talk about their future and what might lie in store for them if they do lose this series. Logan, let's go to the Western Conference now in the second round of the NBA playoffs. First, let's talk about this Nuggets-Suns series. Now, when I saw this series on paper, I was very excited to watch it because, to me, these are 2 of the deepest teams in the Western Conference. Utah, as I've mentioned before, extremely deep. But this Nuggets team, even without Jamal Murray, is still a very deep team. Will Barton returned last night for the Nuggets. And this Suns team, too, not only are they talented, but they have guys coming off that bench. You're talking about guys like Cameron Payne, Cam Johnson. These guys really have stepped up for the Phoenix Suns. And then obviously it looks like Chris Paul is healthy again. And this Suns team, Logan, is no joke. And they have taken the first 2 games of this series. Now, Phoenix does hold home court, so they did hold serve on their home court in these past 2 games. Game 1 was a 17-point win for the Suns. They outscored Denver 34-26 in the fourth quarter. Michael Porter Jr. of Denver finished with 15 points in 31 minutes. Nikola Jokic, who was just named MVP this week as well, 22 points in 36 minutes for him. On the Suns side of things, Mikal Bridges, Logan, has really been a huge factor for them all season long, and he finished with 23 points in 34 minutes. Devin Booker and Chris Paul combined for 42 points, each of them with 21 points. DeAndre Ayton has really been handling his business in this series against Nikola Jokic. 20 points, 36 minutes in Game 1, and then in Game 2, Logan, for DeAndre Ayton, if we look at when we look at the stats here, Ayton he really was fantastic, and he's not scared to take on Nikola Jokic from what it looks like to me. DeAndre Ayton, 15 points, 26 minutes, and 10 rebounds as well. So when we look at this series, Logan, are you more surprised by how Phoenix has taken care of business on their home court, or are you just more disappointed in Denver and how they've basically been blown out in 2 straight games? They lost Game 2, 123-98. It really was just never competitive. They were down, by as many as 30 at one point, if I'm not mistaken, from what I saw last night. And this is I understand that they don't have Jamal Murray, but again, I was talking about they have a deep roster. So for them to get blown out in these first 2 games, it's really been disappointing thus far. So what are your thoughts? Are you more impressed with Phoenix, or are you more disappointed in Denver?
Well, this is a two-sided question. So first off, I'm going to say this. When it comes to the blowouts, there's no excuse. None. I mean, this Suns team is good, but it's not the Nets. And I'm just going to keep on saying that. It's a good team, but it's not the Nets. They should not be getting blown out like that. Now, I'd like to say, more than anything, I'm very impressed with the Phoenix team, with the Phoenix that we've seen these past 2 games.
Yeah.
Now, personally, and I don't mean to be a hater, but I haven't been all that impressed with Devin Booker's performance. I really haven't. But, lucky for him, he hasn't had to play very well because Mikal Bridges, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton,
yeah, exactly.
Aaron Johnson, all these guys have stepped up.
Right. So you're not going to need Booker to step up, and he had 21 points in Game 1, and then in Game 2, Logan, look at the stats here, only 18 points, but it's not like he's been completely anemic. But like you said, those guys are stepping up. It's that next man mentality. So there's really no reason for Booker to have to elevate his game when you said guys like Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, and DeAndre Ayton are contributing as well.
Exactly. So I'm hoping he'll be able to step up, because I'm telling you right now, I know it's been a blowout these couple games, but I am predicting at least one close game in this series. At least one.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Either way, it's going to be a close game, so I'm hoping he can elevate his game in that one game.
Yes.
Because if he can't, he might show a little bit of lax in his game and come postseason.
Yeah.
But I'm really, really excited to see what this is going. But the Nuggets, there is no excuse for this blowout, for these couple blowouts. Nikola Jokic, he's played all right. But, I mean, I'm disappointed in my guy, Michael Porter Jr. I was talking him up, and I said he was really, really good, and he played really well in the first round, but he has been awful these first couple games.
Yeah, only 11 points.
Pathetic.
Yeah, only 11 points and 6 rebounds, all in 28 minutes last night. That's not the greatest stat line.
Yeah, on 3 of 13 from the field as well.
Yeah.
Just awful performances from all around from that team. The bench has been bad. I mean, honestly, I don't see how this could go any other way. But I'm hoping they can at least make it one good game, so it's not all blowouts and it's all not let's turn off the TV at halftime.
Yeah.
But either way, I'm hoping Book can step up and show me I'd just like to see one really, really good game, because we've seen players who perform in the first round and then can't do it from then.
Yeah.
Most recently, a guy like Giannis or Chris Paul. For a lot of years, Chris Paul couldn't get anywhere in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
He couldn't perform after the first round.
Right.
So I'm hoping Book isn't like that, but we're definitely going to find out in the next couple nights in Game 3 and Game 4.
So, looking at it from the Nuggets' perspective, Logan, Jamal Murray, their star point guard, who had a terrific year in the bubble last year, obviously out after hurting his knee, tearing his ACL a few months ago. If Jamal Murray was healthy and playing in this series, Logan, do you think that we would still be in this position? Is that Suns team just that good, or do you think that Jamal Murray would have helped stop the bleeding a little bit for this Denver team if he was healthy?
I think Jamal Murray would definitely do more than just stop the bleeding. I think the series would actually be a 1-1 series instead of 2-0. Game 1, although it was only a 17-point game, it was kind of dominated entirely by that Suns team. Given the score and the spread, I do believe Jamal Murray would have made a huge difference offensively with his ability to play, make, and facilitate the offense, as well as shoot the lights out of any arena at any given time. So I think the series is a 1-1 series. I think Jamal Murray would be getting around 25 a game.
Yeah.
That's what Jamal Murray does. But I think that, unfortunately, since they don't have him, they've got to have somebody step up. And so far, that has been Michael Porter Jr. But if he doesn't start getting over 20 points a game for the rest, if he doesn't get any 20 points a game, I don't see this team winning. Because unfortunately, they don't have anybody else that really can do that like that. It's a deep team of quality starters, but none of them really are going to go and drop 25 on you. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I see what you mean.
A lot of quality starters. It's not a guy like Jay Crowder, who we've seen drop 20 here and there whenever he feels good, you know?
Yeah.
They don't have shooters like that.
Right.
They don't have the Duncan Robinsons. They don't have the Joe Harrises like that. They have Will Barton, who's a good 3-and-D guy, but that's about it.
Yeah.
So, to me, if Aaron Gordon doesn't score 20 or MPJ doesn't score 20, they don't win.
Yeah, and Aaron Gordon wasn't great last night, only 6 points in 20 minutes. Game 3 is tomorrow night in Denver. Obviously, altitude will play a huge factor for Phoenix in this game. Do you think that the Nuggets will be able to take both of their home games 3 and 4, and we head back to Phoenix tied 2-2? Are you confident enough in this Denver team that they can handle their business at home?
I think Denver will take Game 3 and lose Game 4. I think because of the fact that they are down 2-0 right now, they've got a little bit desperate in them. I think they're going to go out. I think Michael Porter Jr. is going to play well tomorrow night.
Yeah.
I think he's finally going to show glimpses of what we saw in the first round. But I think that come Game 4, Devin Booker is going to do Devin Booker. I think Devin Booker is going to put on a show in Game 4.
Okay.
I think Chris Paul might struggle a little bit. I'm glad he's getting his feet back, but I think he might struggle in Denver. Not just because of the altitude, like you mentioned. Just I don't know if Chris Paul's 100%. He definitely looked 100%.
Yeah, he looks a lot better for sure. He looks a lot better than he did in games 1 and 2 of the first round. He looks a lot better than that.
But as commonly known, looks can be very deceiving. I think I need to see a little bit more out of him. I think he'll struggle in Game 3 and Game 4.
Okay.
But I do think the Suns will go up 3-1. And if they don't take it out back in Game 1 back in Phoenix in Game 5, then they go back and take it out in Game 6. So I got this series going 5 or 6, depending on how Jokic plays in Game 5.
Yeah, and, Nikola Jokic is now with Jamal Murray out, is going to need to show us why he was this year's league MVP. Congrats to him, but he definitely has a lot of work to do in this series. As I mentioned, Game 3 between the Suns and Nuggets will be tomorrow from Denver at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Game 4 will be on Sunday, the 13th, at 8 p.m. from Denver. Now, let's look into our last Western Conference semifinal series, Logan, between the Los Angeles Clippers and the Utah Jazz. That's right, the Clippers defeated the Mavericks in Game 7, Logan. So sadly, your guy Luka Doncic is out of the playoffs. The Clippers, the first team in this series to win a game on their home court. So they moved on to the second round, and they faced the Utah Jazz in Game 1 of this series. Now, Utah, with them being the first seed in the Western Conference, they hold home court. So if there is a Game 7, it will be in Salt Lake City. And let's look at this box score, Logan. First for the Clippers, Kawhi Leonard, 23 points, Paul George, 20 points in 37 minutes. A lot of people are talking about the Paul George performance. Obviously it wasn't great, but to me, I didn't see it being a complete disaster. It could have been a lot worse. Luke Kennard, though, in these last two games, Game 7 of the first round and Game 1, he's really stepped up for the Clippers, Logan. 18 points in 29 minutes. The Clippers were doing a tremendous job in the first half of this series. They were up by double digits, and they were up 60 to, if I'm doing my math correctly here, they were up 60 to 47 at halftime. So they looked really strong, Logan. But in that third quarter is really what kind of tore them apart. They were outscored 32 to 19 in the third quarter. Utah went on a very long scoring drought in that first quarter, but they picked it up and they basically made up for it in the third quarter, scoring 32 points alone in that third quarter. Then they outscored LA 33 to 30 in the fourth. So Logan, I wanted to get your opinion on this. Are you nervous about the Clippers moving forward in this series? Because when we look at it and you think about it, they just came off of Game 7 2 days ago. Then they go to Salt Lake City, and they're competing with the Jazz. They were honestly dominating that first half against Utah. But then the 3-point shooting starts to affect them. And then Utah is hitting all of their shots. Donovan Mitchell was tremendous in Game 1. 45 points in 37 minutes. This guy is putting up numbers that are just unbelievable. These are all-time great numbers he is putting up for the Utah Jazz, and in the postseason nonetheless. So are you concerned about the Clippers moving forward in this series, or do you think that Paul George just had a bad game? Not a bad game, but it was an average game by his standards, and you think that they can bounce back in Game 2? How do you feel on the Clippers, about the Clippers right now?
Well, they're worrying me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I mean, you talked about Paul George. You said he had an okay game. Personally, I'm not sure if I agree with that. I'm not going to lie. He had 20 points. Okay. He had 10 rebounds. Okay. He also shot 4 of 17 from the field.
Mm-hmm.
So he's shooting under 25% from the field.
Yeah.
That, to me, regardless of who you are, is unacceptable.
Yeah, and I mean,
if you have 50, you shoot under 25%, that's another level of low.
Yeah. I mean,
the other player that I'd like to mention before I answer that question is Marcus Morris. Who is paying this guy?
Steve Ballmer.
We talk about Brook Lopez. This guy shoots 4 of 14 with 9 points.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
And this was a guy who was on the Celtics. He was on the Celtics a couple years ago, Logan, and he was a key bench contributor for that Boston Celtics team. And, he's had some good games in these playoffs, but for the majority of it, I really don't know what's going on with him. I agree with you there.
I just don't understand why this Clippers team chooses to do the things that they do. They finally played Rajon Rondo some good minutes.
Yeah.
Finally. And he was a huge piece of that facilitating. He led the team in assists, can I add?
Yeah.
He was a huge contributor to that team, okay? I'd like to say that. Now, when it comes to Kawhi Leonard, he played well. He did. Mm-hmm. I give him credit. But this Clippers team is worrying me because the Jazz absolutely tore them apart in the second half.
Yeah.
Tore them apart. Donovan Mitchell, good gracious.
Yeah,
this guy
unbelievable.
Is amazing.
Yeah.
45 points, over 50% from the field. Wow.
Yeah.
Just wow. I mean, this team is worrying me. Game 2, it'll be a good game tonight. I'll tell you that much. It'll be a good game. But I don't know what to even say about this Clippers team because they seem to do everything right and they still lose.
Really, what do you think they did? Because you were talking about Paul George, and from what you were explaining, Logan, he wasn't doing what was right. So even though the Clippers they got torn apart, like you said, in that second half, what did you see from them that they were doing right to have a chance to even win this game?
Well, it seems defensively, at least in the first half, in the first quarter especially, they held them under 20.
Yeah.
I mean, they were there entirely. I think we talked about Marcus Morris and how awful he was offensively, and I can make jokes all I want. He is effective defensively.
Yeah, for sure.
He is a solid effort. He's
a
very good defensive player. He's a dog.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is they just get tired. They just stop playing. After they go up by a lot, they just stop playing.
Yeah. How do you feel about Luke Kennard as well? Because he's, I talked about this a little bit, and he stepped up these last couple of games for the Clippers. Do you think that he's going to have a positive impact for them going forward?
Well, I think he's going to have to. That is the only that's the only possibility to me that this team is going to have a chance in this series. This Utah team is a very good team.
Yeah.
We saw it in round 1. And I think we're going to see it in round 2 here. I think the Jazz are going to win this series. I think that they're going to take it, and it's going to go to 6. I think it's going to go to 6 or 7. But I think Luke Kennard is going to have to continue to play really, really well. He's only averaging about 8 points a game right now.
Yeah.
He also hasn't gotten a lot of minutes. I think his improved play will add on. We'll give him more minutes, which will give him more opportunity, and I think more opportunity is what this kid needs, and it'll help him to continue to improve and
Yeah, Luke Kennard in Game 1 against the Jazz, 18 points in 29 minutes to go along with 2 rebounds. Kind of has that sweet shooting. He's one of those shooters on the Clippers. When he's on, and they're going to need him coming off that bench to be productive now that Lou Williams is no longer a member of the Clippers. Now, Game 2 of this series continues tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Time from Salt Lake City, Utah. Clippers looking to tie the series up at 1 game apiece. The Jazz looking to take a commanding 2-0 lead before this game heads back to the Staples Center in Los Angeles. Game 3 from LA will be Saturday at 8:30 p.m., with Game 4 being on Monday, June 14th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Logan, that concludes NBA playoff news for us this week, but we're going to keep it locked in on basketball here just for a little bit more. Let's talk about the WNBA. The regular season has been well underway for this last about a month now, and let's take a look at the Eastern Conference here. Look at the Connecticut Sun. They have been on a tear. They're 8-2 overall on the season. They're 5-0 at home, 3-2 on the road. They have just looked absolutely dominant. They're the only team in the WNBA who is more than 2 games above the 500 mark. The New York Liberty, they have a record of 5-4. They've lost their last 3 games. That they're 3-2 at home. We look at the Western Conference, Logan. The defending champions, Seattle Storm, are taking care of business, 8-2 to start the season thus far as well. They're 5-2 at home, 3-0 on the road. The Las Vegas Aces come in at 7-3. They've won their last 2 games, and they're 3-1. They're 3-1 at home. So, Logan, when we look at this. When we look at the standings here in the WNBA, from what you see right now, is this what you expected from the league thus far? Are there any surprises that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, this is around where I expected. I mean, I think we all looked at Connecticut Sun and looked at Jontel Jones, and all expected her to ball out per usual. You know, a 6'6" monster forward. She's a huge talent for that team, and I think a lot of people expected this team to be where it is right now in the conference. And in the West, obviously Seattle. Breanna Stewart has played really out of her mind like she usually does. Sue Bird has played well even at her age. But one honorable mention is Jewel Lloyd has had a fantastic step up this year.
Yeah.
She has played so well. She jumped from 15.5 points this last season in 22 games to 20.5 now.
Yeah.
She has played very, very well this year. So she is a huge reason that the Seattle Storm is in the position that it is. The only surprise that I would say, and I know I talked pretty highly of them before the season, is the Las Vegas Aces. 7-3 right now in the West. It's a good young team. It's a young team that I wasn't really sure what to expect from. I know they looked really good, especially with Asia Wilson at that forward position. She's been amazing.
Yeah.
These past 4 years, she has had great years back to back, efficient years. But a lot of the young guards and young centers that they just got recently have played really well as well, aiding to their huge start to their year at 7-3.
And I want to talk about the Chicago Sky a little bit here too, Logan. Candace Parker returned last night for her home debut, and the Sky right now are struggling. They're 3-7 on right now on the season. They're 2-2 on the road, but they're only 1-5 at home, and that one win was their most recent win with Candace Parker returning. You know, given the fact that she is getting older now, do you believe that Candace Parker can still carry this Chicago team back to at least a respectable position in this Eastern Conference?
Well, I don't know. As you mentioned, she's getting older, and Sue Bird, she's around there at that same age. She's getting up there just like she is.
Right.
But I think Kalea Copper, is going to have to continue to get better. Only at 14 points a game, she leads that team in scoring.
Yeah.
On 40% from the field. Nobody, and this is an interesting fact, one person on that team shoots over 45% from the field. One person.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is just not okay. You have to be able to be efficient in going about your business. And Candace Parker, she's been a huge talent her entire career, but she's starting to fall and lag behind at only under 10 points a game and 31% from the field. I don't think she's ever going to be the same player that she used to be.
Yeah.
But I don't know if she can truly be that big of a contributor to the point to bring them back to a competition respectable record.
And let's stay in the Eastern Conference and talk about the Washington Mystics as well, Logan. Same overall story. Elena Delle Donne, still on the roster, however, getting older, and the Mystics find themselves in fourth place in the Eastern Conference. They're 3-5, 3 wins, 5 losses, and they're 2-3 at home and 1-2 on the road. And this is with Elena Delle Donne, still being on the roster. Do you think that she can also boost the Mystics? Because I definitely think they can be better than the Dream, and they'll fight with the Liberty, because I think the Liberty are a very talented young team. They can fight with New York to get that second spot. Do you think that Elena Delle Donne, similar to Candace Parker, can carry her team to a more respectable position in these Eastern Conference standings?
Well, I do. I think that Elena Delle Donne, she's not as old, she's not as seasoned as Candace Parker is, but she also provides a little bit more size.
Yeah.
At 6'5", she's going to provide a little bit more ability on the inside, and that's the best shot you can get as a layup. And then I also think she's got more help than Candace Parker, with Tina Charles having an amazing year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Leading the league in scoring, and Ariel Adkins continuing where she left off last year.
Yeah.
At that guard position, she's holding down the fort. I just think that this team's got a lot going for them, and you've got your facilitator guard, Natasha Cloud, averaging her 6 assists a game and 2 steals. She has played well as doing her job. I just think that Elena Delle Donne has more to come back to than Candace Parker does. Candace Parker, it seems like she's taking a team that was at the bottom, taking them to the top, and I feel like Elena Delle Donne's coming back and taking a team that has the pieces.
Right.
We just need that leader to bring them there. So I think that she's that missing piece that the Mystics are waiting for to come back and bring them back to contention.
Yeah, and the Washington Mystics a couple years ago made it all the way to the WNBA Finals. We'll see if Elena Delle Donne can get some magic back there in D.C. and maybe take the Mystics on another playoff run. We'll see what happens. But upcoming games in the WNBA this upcoming weekend, we have this upcoming Saturday, the Sky will be taking on the Fever at 1 p.m., the Sparks will be going up against the Minnesota Lynx at 8 p.m. on Saturday. And then Sunday, we have a slate of games for you, 4 total games. The Seattle Storm will be taking on the Connecticut Sun. What a fun game that should be. The 2 best teams going head-to-head in that matchup on Sunday. The Washington Mystics will be going up against the Atlanta Dream. The Wings taking on the Aces on Sunday, and then our last matchup on the 13th will be the New York Liberty going up against the Phoenix Mercury. That will be another great matchup as well, Logan. Now let's move on we're going to move on from basketball here. Let's talk about some Cleveland Indians baseball. You can't have a Cleveland sports show in the spring without talking about the Indians. And last night, the Indians, they played the St. Louis Cardinals and struggled. They gave up 8 runs to St. Louis yesterday, and that inconsistency piece you were talking about, Logan, it continues. The Indians gave up 8 runs in last night's loss to the Cardinals, lost 8-2. They defeated St. Louis on Tuesday 10-1. Scoring 10 runs there. But then on this past Sunday, June 6th, they gave up 18 runs to the Baltimore Orioles. And if I'm not mistaken, Logan, that's the most runs the Indians have given up all season. And they just played some terrible defense in that game on June 6th. So I was very surprised by that. And once again, that inconsistency factor comes in, Logan. They gave up 3 runs on Friday to the Orioles. They scored 10 runs on Saturday, give up 18 to the Orioles. They scored 10 runs on Tuesday, only give up 1 run. And then last night, they gave up 8 runs and only scored 2. So this inconsistency continues for the Cleveland Indians. So, Logan, what is going on? Do you think it's now we need to look more at Terry Francona and the manager perspective, that he's not making adjustments, or are the players themselves not making the adjustments they need to make in-game in order to have more consistent results for this team?
Well, I think it's two things. First off, I think the pitching staff, I think the pitching rotation isn't it right now.
Okay.
I mean, aside from Shane Bieber and occasionally Aaron Savale, the starters can't go deep. They just can't go. I mean, you saw against last night, I believe it was, against St. Louis when Shane Bieber pitched. It wasn't last night. It was a couple nights ago, sorry.
Yeah.
He goes 6 innings, and it wasn't like he was lighting it up with Ks. He had 5 strikeouts.
Right.
And he just played amazing. He did what Shane Bieber does. Giving up 1 run.
Yeah.
5. Through 6. And then he didn't even need to come out.
Yeah.
The thing is, the inconsistency with the pitching rotation, and then the fact that Terry Francona just won't make adjustments. He just doesn't want to make a change.
Yeah.
It's worked these past few years. This team has been a playoff team. They've contended before. It just doesn't work anymore. He doesn't have Carlos Carrasco. He doesn't have those guys. He doesn't have that kind of depth like we used to have in the pitching rotation.
Right.
He doesn't have Corey Kluber anymore. He doesn't have Trevor Bauer. He doesn't have these guys. He has to learn to utilize the youth that he has in the relievers. And we need to get another starter. Obviously not of Shane Bieber's caliber, but somebody that can go 5 or 6 innings at least.
Yeah.
Because it just seems the first inning, it's 6 or 7 runs. That's what it feels like. First 2 innings, there's 6 or 7 runs given up, and it's just not going to work because the team is going to continue to win one, lose one, win one, lose one, and that's not how you get into the postseason, and that's not how this Indians team is going to regain control of the AL Central.
And Logan, if this Indians team continues the way they do, if being, obviously we're Indians fans, should we consider possibly thinking about letting Terry Francona go? Should that be our mindset if this inconsistency continues? Should Indians management, maybe put him on the hot seat?
Yeah, I think a lot of the times managers do one of 2 things on the hot seat. They either perform the way they're supposed to, or they crumble. And Terry Francona has been a great manager for a lot of years, but at this point in his career, he just isn't making the necessary adjustments to help win baseball games. And I think that there are other candidates who would do so. So at this point, I think it's about time we put Francona on the hot seat. That doesn't mean we fire him.
Right.
It means we give him a chance to figure himself out. And if he doesn't, then it's time to make some adjustments.
Yeah, and the Indians have they've got a slate of home games coming up. Tomorrow they'll be going up against the Seattle Mariners for 3 straight games at Progressive Field in downtown Cleveland. Then they'll have 4 straight matchups beginning Monday, June 14th against the Baltimore Orioles. Indians certainly want to make up for the 2 losses they suffered to Baltimore earlier this week in that one this past Sunday, giving up 18 runs. The Indians, after that 4-game homestand against that 4-game home series against Baltimore at Progressive Field, they will head to Pittsburgh for 3 matchups against the Pirates before then heading out to Chicago and Minneapolis for matchups against the Cubs and the Twins. So, Logan, with these next few home games against the Mariners, 3 against the Mariners, 4 against the Baltimore Orioles, what do you want to see from this Indians team? I know we've been talking about that consistency factor just needs to improve. But what else are you looking for from this team? You've been talking a lot about the pitching as well. Is the story continue with the pitching, or is there another aspect on the field that you want to see the Indians improve on in these next few home games?
Well, I mean, I'm going to go back to the consistency, at least with the bats. The bats, I'm just going to say consistency because that's what's going to make the difference. We need the guys in Jordan Luplow. We need Bradley Zimmer. We need those guys to get on base so our better batters, Cesar, Oscar, Jose, they can bring them home. Yeah. That's how baseball works. It's how you win games. That's how you drive in runs. Pitching-wise, I need Aaron Savale. I just talked about how well he's played this year, an 8-2 record win-loss. He needs to continue it. 3.49 ERA. He's having a good year. He just needs to keep it up. tomorrow night against Seattle. This next series, I'm interested, again, to see Terry Francona especially. I need to see him make adjustments at the right time.
Yeah.
And if the pitchers are playing well, don't pull them. Don't pull them. Bieber, I don't know why he pulled him in the sixth. I understand trying to keep him, but he's probably not going to pull for another week anyways. I don't know why you pull him. Why not let him go 8 or 9? Let him go 8. Until you're up to 10-1. Let him play.
Yeah.
It's not like you don't have insurance runs.
Right.
He's got 9.
Yeah.
So at that point, you need to let him play baseball. Let him do his job.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see the kind of adjustments that he makes, because that's right now what I'm interested in, is whether Terry Francona will finally make the adjustments after being put on the hot seat.
Yeah, it'll certainly be an interesting next couple of games for the Indians. Right now, they're second place in the American League Central Division with a record of 32 wins and 27 losses. They're 4 games behind first place for that Central League pennant. The Chicago White Sox claim first place. They're 37-24. Chicago is 24-11 at home, 13-13 on the road. The Indians, meanwhile, they're 5-5 in their last 10 games. They're 14-12 at home, looking to improve that home record and get some more wins under their belt before they head out on the road to Pittsburgh, Chicago, and then Minneapolis. So those are going to be some long road trips for the Indians. Logan, one last topic of discussion for us today on the Cleveland Sports Show this week. I am very excited to hear what you have to say about this. We were talking last week about the Julio Jones trade rumors and if he stays in Atlanta, what'll happen, where could he possibly go. Well, we got coincidentally, to be honest with you, we got our answer this week. The Atlanta Falcons have traded Julio Jones to the Tennessee Titans. Now, Tennessee they were a big surprise last year in the NFL. They had a terrific season. They fell to Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens last year in the wild card round. But with the addition of Julio Jones, this Tennessee Titans team is certainly very scary. When you look at their division, Logan, I don't see how you can put this Titans team over any other team over this Titans team. You're talking about the Colts, the Texans, and the Jaguars, who are also in Tennessee's division. I think this acquisition of Julio Jones, you put that alongside the talents of Derrick Henry, who is an absolute beast. He was terrific last season. You have A.J. Brown at the wide receiver. Ryan Tannehill is still a quarterback, very, very resourceful quarterback, very reliable quarterback. You have Bud Dupree still as your linebacker. This Tennessee team, with this acquisition of Julio Jones, is really going to be scary for teams, especially in the AFC South. So let's keep it locked in on the AFC South, Logan. Do you think that this acquisition of Julio Jones firmly solidifies Tennessee as the team to beat in the AFC South? Because to be quite honest with you, I know the Jacksonville Jaguars, with that number 1 pick in Trevor Lawrence, and now they have Tim Tebow, so they clearly have some pieces with Urban Meyer as the head coach now, but I still think the Titans are far better than the Jaguars and will be this year. So do you think that with this acquisition of Julio Jones, Logan, that the Titans should be the favorites in the AFC South division?
Yeah, I mean, I think they were the favorites without him, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah.
I think that Jacksonville Jaguars, until I see something, shouldn't even be mentioned in the same breath as the Tennessee Titans, if I'm being completely fair about it. Let's be honest, this team goes from 1-15. What are they going to be, 15-1 next year?
Right, right.
No. And I understand. I'm just, I'm being dramatic, but still.
Absolutely,
At this point in their life, in the franchise, I just need to see something from them.
Do you think...
And
I was just going to ask you this too. What about the Indianapolis Colts? I mean, Carson Wentz is there now. They had an 11-5 season last year. Do you think they could challenge Tennessee as well?
I think it's a possibility, but I still don't think I could ever put them near favorited because of the lack of a receiving core in Indianapolis. Carson Wentz, I mean, I understand he had nothing, and when I say nothing, I mean like he had nothing in Philadelphia. But Doug Peterson's an amazing head coach.
Yeah.
He really, really is. He's a great offensive schemer, so at the very least, he got guys open.
Right.
Indianapolis doesn't have anything near a wide receiving core either.
Yeah.
And I just feel especially considering the fact that Deshaun Watson, mind you, is still in the AFC South.
Right.
He's still in the AFC South, and Carson Wentz wasn't playing, Tennessee twice a season his career. He wasn't playing, Deshaun Watson twice a season.
Yeah.
Each year. He was playing New York, the Washington football team.
Right.
He was playing those teams in the NFC East.
Yeah.
So
Cowboys.
To me, I don't think Carson Wentz is going to be that great in Indianapolis. I think he'll play better, but I don't think he'll play very well. I do not think this team is going to be as good as they were last year. Phillip Rivers isn't there. He won't play, at least.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that the Tennessee Titans are the number one team to look after in the AFC South, given the addition of Julio Jones.
And now with the Titans having Julio Jones, what is your predicted record that they will have for next season?
I'm going to go around a 13, or not 13, sorry. I would honestly go to the extent of a 12-5.
Okay.
11-6, around there. And the reason I say that is because this team, and I was talking to a friend about this, and he was like, oh my God, this Titans team might just be one of the best teams in the AFC now. And I don't know if I would go to that extent. I will say this much. This is now going to be one of the most dangerous offenses in the NFL.
Yeah.
That is true.
Right.
Because you're going to have a disgusting play-action game. It's going to be ridiculous.
Right.
You're not going to be able to stop them. The offense is going to be very good, but the problem is, and Ryan Tannehill played really well last year. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But Ryan Tannehill isn't going to be, the next coming of Lamar Jackson.
No.
He's not going to be, a 40-touchdown, 50-touchdown, and no picks kind of guy. He's not going to turn into Aaron Rodgers because he's got Julio Jones on the team.
Right.
That's just not how the NFL works.
Yeah.
It's not like the NBA where you can go to a team that has nothing and then drop 30 points and be amazing. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
You have to put in work. You have to be great.
Yes.
And Ryan Tannehill, to me, is just a system quarterback. He's a game manager.
Yeah.
He can make throws. He's a game manager. That's just what he does. So to me, they're missing a true A-plus, A-minus level quarterback.
Okay.
And that defense is skeptical. That defense isn't very good. It's got a couple pieces.
Yeah.
They've got Saquon Jones in the D-line. They've got, guys like Logan Ryan in the secondary. Or not anymore. No, sorry, not Logan Ryan. They've got Malcolm Butler. They've got guys in the secondary. Kevin Byard. They've got guys back there. Wesley Woodyard in the linebacking core. This team is just pieces short. They need a couple pieces on that defense. They need one or two guys, A-plus level defensive players.
Yeah.
And then we'll be having a different conversation about this Tennessee Titans team.
Well, certainly that offense has improved now with Julio Jones being a member of the Tennessee Titans. Very excited to see how they will perform this upcoming NFL season. Plus, you still have Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, and Ryan Tannehill. That is certainly going to be a very formidable opponent for any team in the NFL. Well, Logan, that concludes our latest edition of the Cleveland Sports Show. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I really had a great time talking about the NBA playoffs with you. Really loved to hear what you had to say about the Indians. And this was a fun topic of discussion as well. We with the WNBA and the Tennessee Titans. Really enjoyed having you on this week, Logan. Until next time, thank you so much again, and have a great week.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks so much. And ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned, that concludes our latest edition of the Cleveland Sports Show. Thank you so much for joining me this week for another edition of the podcast. Now, hold on, wipe those tears from your eyes, because you can still access more of the Cleveland Sports Show. That's right, there is more where that came from, and I'm going to tell you where you can find it right now. Now, if you're on NordoniaHills.News, just go to the Contributors tab, and you'll be able to find my name. It's Darius Sethna, spelled Darayussethna. Once you click on my name, you'll be able to access all of my work from Nordonia Hills Media, more episodes to the podcast, some articles I've written. I've also, if you keep scrolling down, I did some play-by-play for the Nordonia boys basketball team. This year, they had a terrific team, so you're not going to want to miss out on watching those games and hearing my calls if you didn't see them already. Also, if you're on Twitter, well, guess what? That's great, because I'm also on Twitter. Just type in my Twitter handle, @Nordonia Sports, or you can type in my name, once again spelled DARAYUSSETHNA, and you'll be able to access my Twitter page and find all my work on there as well. Episodes to the podcast are on there. Also, other Twitter posts, links to articles, and the videos to my broadcasts on my Twitter page as well. I'm very excited to say that the Cleveland Sports Show is also on the NordoniaHills.News YouTube page. That's right, so if you're on YouTube, just make sure you head to the NordoniaHills.News YouTube page, and all of my episodes for the Cleveland Sports Show will be on there as well. I'm also very happy to announce that the Cleveland Sports Show is also on Spotify. That's right, if you're on the go, you can take the Cleveland Sports Show with you. Just type in my name in the Spotify search bar if you have the app. Just type in DARAYUSSETHNA, Darius Sethna. From there, you'll have all my episodes for the Cleveland Sports Show podcast on there for you to listen to, and you will have, once again, you have the Cleveland Sports Show on the go. So no matter where you are, you can take the Cleveland Sports Show with you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes my most recent episode of the Cleveland Sports Show. Thank you so much for joining me for yet another week of sports updates. Really appreciate you hanging with Logan and I this week. We'll see you next time. We'll talk more NBA playoffs, more WNBA standings. We'll see what the Indians do in this in their home game stretch these next few days, and we'll also see if there are any more NFL updates for us to talk about. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, have a terrific week. Thank you so much for your time, and take care.